Confirm the count, and tell me it's a mistake.
11. Maybe higher? The far edge hasn't stopped resolving yet.
Ensign Voth Talon had watched 3 enemy dreadnoughts vent their crews into vacuum without so much as blinking. This signal made his hand shake before he even understood what it was. It arrived at 0347 Fleet Standard, a single automated ping, bounced off a comms buoy nobody on the Ashari Concorde's charts remembered installing, addressed to nobody in particular. The whole watch deck went quiet around him. 400 light-years away, in a cargo hold barely large enough to turn around in, Hank Runner was humming an off-key version of a song he couldn't remember the words to, filing supply manifests he definitely should have submitted 2 weeks ago. Fleet muster ping, he muttered, thumbing a checklist stuck to the bulkhead with actual adhesive tape, because the tablet app kept crashing. Annual asset confirmation. Boring. Boring. Also boring. He tapped send on a form that had been sitting in his outbox since Tuesday, stretched until his back popped, and went back to reorganizing a supply locker that smelled faintly of reheated noodles. Voth frowned at his readout. The ping wasn't a weapon signature, wasn't a jump flare, wasn't even encrypted particularly well. It read almost like paperwork. He ran the analysis twice, certain his sensors were malfunctioning. They weren't, which was somehow worse. What kind of species sent something this heavily backed by scale and made it look this bored? He forwarded it upstairs with a note. Recommend review. Then he sat there, staring at the readout, wondering why a piece of routine-looking traffic had made every hair on his arm stand up. Problem, Ensign? Asked Petty Officer Ren Kalu, leaning over his shoulder with a mug of something lukewarm. Define problem, Voth said. It's a signal shaped like a filing form. Sent on a schedule. Aimed at nothing in particular, like whoever sent it already assumed the universe would catch it eventually. Kalu squinted at the readout, shrugged, and wandered off with his mug. Voth did not find that reassuring. Somewhere out there, something had sent a message with the calm confidence of a species that had never once worried about being ignored. Dr. Prynshek was pulled out of a well-earned nap for what her aide called a small math problem. She did not appreciate the framing. She appreciated it even less once she actually looked at the numbers. The ping's return echo had bounced off something. Not a ship, not a station. A field of somethings, evenly spaced across an unthinkable volume of empty space, radiating heat signatures consistent with long-term dormant power cores held just above absolute idle. She checked her instruments, then checked them again because the count kept returning with too many digits to be a sane answer. How many did your model say that was? She asked her aide. We don't have a number for it yet, Doctor. We ran out of number. Ashek laughed, once, the way people laugh at things that aren't funny. Then she stopped laughing because the field wasn't just large. It was still growing the longer her scanners lingered on it, like counting stars and realizing the sky kept adding more the harder you looked. Recalibrate and run it again, she told her aide, assuming our instruments are broken. Already did that, Doctor. Twice. The instruments are fine. Then assume the field is a decoy. Empty hulls. Set dressing. The aide hesitated. The power signatures are consistent with active cooling systems, Doctor. Something in there is being kept alive. All of it. Ashek set down her stylus very carefully, as though it might go off. Commander Islandraska did not enjoy being woken for numbers problems either, not until she saw where the field was parked. Not inside human territory. Not near any contested border. Beyond the outer galactic rim, past the last charted star lane, in the kind of nowhere space nobody bothered patrolling because nothing lived out there and nothing was ever worth finding. Except, apparently, something was. Something enormous, broadcasting correct human transponder codes, that had been sitting quietly in the dark for what her analysts were now cautiously estimating at several decades. Confirm the count, she said, keeping her voice level for the benefit of the bridge crew. And tell me it's a mistake. Her tactical officer, a normally unshakable veteran named Set Orov, ran the confirmation and went pale in a way Draska had never seen from him, not even during the Bracken Line incident. Commander, if this is real, that field alone outmasses our entire home fleet by a factor I'm not comfortable saying out loud. Say it anyway, Lieutenant. 11, he said. maybe higher. The far edge of the field hasn't stopped resolving yet. It was not a mistake. Voth ran the numbers 4 more times back on his own deck and got the same shape every time. A fleet, if fleet was even the correct word for something arranged in a lattice stretching across light hours, running on minimum power, patient, unhurried, waiting. Waiting for what? Nobody on the watch deck could agree on, and the not knowing sat heavier in his chest than any answer would have. Dr. Ashek's horror arrived from something much smaller, a maintenance log buried in the ping's metadata, dry and procedural, cataloging routine hull inspections stretching back further than her own government's oldest surviving warship. Someone had kept this entire structure running, quietly, on schedule, without once mentioning its existence to the rest of their own civilization. They built a reserve, she said slowly, and forgot to tell their own people it was there. Hank, meanwhile, had moved on to labeling crates, one of which he was fairly sure had been mislabeled as spare bolts since before he'd joined the crew. He peeled off the old sticker, wrote spare bolts, actual, underneath, and considered that a job well done for the afternoon. Somewhere on the other side of the galaxy, a species with a name he'd never learn was recalculating its entire military doctrine because of the form he'd filed 20 minutes ago, and he had no idea and wouldn't have cared much even if he did. He microwaved a cup of noodles, burned his tongue on the first bite like always, and made a mental note to complain about the microwave in the next crew meeting, a note he would also, almost certainly, forget to bring up. Commander Draska stared at the tactical display until the shapes stopped resembling sensor ghosts and started resembling exactly what they were. This wasn't a defensive screen. It wasn't even an offensive formation. It was insurance. An entire Second Navy, mothballed past the edge of civilized space, maintained on a rotation nobody volunteered for, held in absolute reserve in case the fleet everyone already knew about was somehow not enough. "They have a spare," she said quietly, to a bridge that had gone very still. An entire spare fleet. As a backup. And they left one board technician in charge of pinging it once a year to make sure it still worked. Nobody on the bridge answered her. Nobody had anything to say to that. Back in his cargo hold, Hank finished the last crate, cracked his knuckles, and glanced at the clock. 15 minutes until his shift ended, which meant 15 minutes to kill before dinner. He pulled up the confirmation screen one more time out of habit, saw the little green checkmark next to Fleet Muster, acknowledged, and felt the small, forgettable satisfaction of a task closed out on time for once. Command said if I forget the ping again this year, they're finally decommissioning the whole backup fleet, he said to no one, since the cargo hold was empty and had been for hours. Which, I mean, fair. It's not like anyone's actually using it. It just sits out there. Ancient. Quiet. It costs a fortune to keep the lights on for basically nothing. He shrugged, filed the confirmation, and moved on to the next item on his list, which turned out to be an even more boring one. Renewing the standby authorization on a second, slightly larger reserve he vaguely remembered existing somewhere past that one nobody had briefed him on beyond a single line that read "See attached. Do not discuss over open channels." He didn't get to that one before his shift ended, mostly because the attachment wouldn't open and he didn't feel like filing a ticket about it. Next week, he told the empty cargo hold, already halfway out the door. Probably 400 light-years away, Commander Draska was still staring at a tactical display that had, in the last 10 minutes, quietly redefined the word backup.